Just rotate.
Hello?
Yeah, the tables are weird.
There we go. All right, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. There we go. Terrence is coming back in now. Hey, do we have the link? Let's get the link. Are you going here real fast? Did you send it to me, Mikey? All right, hey, real fast as we begin today, if you guys have your Facebook, we're going to go ahead and share this on Facebook real fast so that we can get everybody here that's there. Anytime that you need to get up and get food, of course, you're welcome to do so. Let's thank Shasta for bringing the food tonight, huh? Yeah. And Bill for cooking all of our desserts tonight. Yeah, great job. Let me tell you a couple things. First of all, Pastor John is back in town, which makes Elias really happy because his favorite pastor is back in town. But also, Anthony's out of town. Anthony is with our students at Stephen Christian Academy on a Washington, D.C. trip. And so that means that right now, Pastor John is playing youth pastor right now. So he is running our youth ministry right now while we're in here running this. So that was really cool of him to step up and do that tonight so that Anthony can go on that trip. So we'll make sure to thank him whenever you see him and do all that stuff. And right now it looks as though I say that and I get on Facebook in order to do that. It looks like, is this our Anthony? Is he at a basketball game? It looks like he is. So he's at a basketball game in order to do this. All right, so I'm sharing this online right now. And then no, I didn't press the copy button. And then also our good friend, Pastor Jacob, is his dad. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but his dad, I don't know the easiest way to say it, does race cars for a living. All right, it's probably the best, the most educated way I know how to say it. And there's a Daytona race, and so he helps out with that a lot. And so Pastor Jacob's in Daytona right now, and so that should be really cool. So that's why he's not here tonight. So let me go ahead and do this here. Check out our, come on James, type out our Bible study. There we go. Shared it. James, what are you doing? What in the world is happening to you right now? All right, sharing it right now on my Facebook and about to share it on the churches. And then if anybody could share it. Well, I don't know. What are you doing over there? Jeez.
It's my wife.
One halftime show, and now you just think you can do whatever you want. All right. So now it's also shared on our churches page as of right now. So anybody want to share that? You can. Hey guys, come on in. We've got plenty of seats if you want to sit at a table. There's plenty of seats up here. That jacket, I can't. There's no way I cannot comment on that jacket. Wow! Holy cow! Wait, I didn't even see the shoes.
Shoes, jacket.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I would say you look like $1 million, but that's $1 billion right there. That's amazing. Holy cow. That's awesome. Yeah, there's no way my ADD was going to. I'm glad I didn't start yet because I would have just completely stopped in the middle of all that. That's amazing. I'm like, ooh, shiny. Good. So I have some papers. If you guys want to sit back there, it's fine. But let me just give you some handouts in case you want to use that. All right, there we go. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started here because we got a lot to talk about today. We have 3 churches left, so if this is your first week with us on a Wednesday night, we have been going through the 7 churches of Revelation, and we've been going through them in geographical order. So this is the geographical order we've been going through. Remember that the Isle of Patmos was where, see, it doesn't work when it's on there. The Isle of Patmos is where John wrote this letter from, the letter of Revelation, and so that's the closest island to Ephesus. So that's why the very first one was Ephesus. Then as he went straight up, and the deliverer gave it to Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, and now today we're on Sardis, which means next week we'll talk about that city that we all hate, Philadelphia, and then we'll end on a really, really cool city, Laodicea. But I believe tonight to be really cool as well. This is probably my second favorite night tonight. So if you guys are here, you guys are lucky that you guys get to be here on my second favorite night. Also, if you say, that looks really cool, I wish I could go one day. Hey, guess what? We also have this right that I'd like to give you as a nice little commercial. So in the middle of your table, everybody should see that we have a handout for you with the QR code, and the QR code is going to take you to that page right there. And we do have a few people that's already signed up, which is very exciting because we're like a year and a half away. So that's awesome. So I have a year and a half to recruit some people to come with us. But Rhonda, you're coming, right?
Once I get a roommate.
Let's do it. All right. So once Rhonda gets a roommate, then she'll be there. No. Well, I'll figure it out. Yeah, you're going. I'm going. Heather's going. It's happening. All right. This is the same 7 churches trip that I took when I went back in November, which is what this entire Bible study is based off of. But we're also adding on a 3-day cruise to Greece, which, I mean, you can't be upset about that, right? That's pretty cool. And so as we're on that 3-day cruise to Greece, we'll also actually be on the Isle of Patmos, and we'll be in the actual cave where John wrote the book of Revelation, which is pretty neat. So all of the visions that he saw of Revelation will be there right in that spot. Who knows? Maybe we'll see a vision too. Who knows? I'm not going to say that. It was blasphemous. I was just trying to make a joke. YouTube, don't cancel me. All right, so that is the commercial for the day. Now let's get into the good stuff, because we are on the Church of Sardis, which you can find in Revelation chapter 3, 1 through 6. I learned how to use this thing today. It's pretty good, right? Right, Elias? So Sardis is, it was my second favorite place to visit, and it was really cool. And one of the things that we saw was we got to see this, which was an old synagogue, one of the largest synagogues that was there. And really the only reason I believe that there is a lot of digging that happens in Sardis is because there was money coming from the northeast of the United States, from the Jewish community, that wants to unveil this large synagogue, which is really cool. And so we got to be there in that synagogue. This is where a lot of the Jewish people would meet back then. But then as we were there, we started to notice something. And as we started to notice something in the synagogue, this is our guide right there. So if you come with me, that would be the guide that we have right there. It's a fantastic guy. But if you guys notice something real good, there's a cool pot right there in the middle, and your eyes might be drawn to the pot, and your eyes might be drawn to our communicator. But there's also something else right there on the screen. If you look real close, if anybody's really good at finding hidden Mickeys, like my good friend John over here, you might notice by his right foot that there is something down there. And there it is a little bit closer. And there it is even closer. That right there, we have this symbol that I have written right up here on the board, and we found it outside the Jewish synagogue. So if this is your first week here, or if you're watching online for the first time, let me unveil to you a little bit about what this means. For many years, we have used this as the symbol of what we thought the underground church community was using, which is why if you're somebody that grew up as a child of the 90s, that really enjoyed the Dunkin' Donuts commercial from the Super Bowl, and James Vanderbeek died today. That's really sad. But anyhow, in the midst of all that, if you were that, we had this fish everywhere, right? We had fish necklace, we had fish bumper stickers, fish T-shirts, and it would be talking about this, right? Fish, F-I-S-H, and in the original language, all of these letters right here, which are what we put in there, matches up to Jesus Christ, God's Son, Savior. But in the last 20 plus years, as they've been doing a lot of excavating, we found out that this symbol only went so far, that this symbol is actually what they were using for the underground church. And you can actually take these and put them within this thing just like this and find out that it makes up this wheel. And so as they were, not we, I keep saying we, but I haven't dug anything, as they have been digging and trying to find the different things that's there, and they start to unveil this Jewish synagogue, they find stuff like this. They've been unveiling houses, and they found symbols like this. They've been unveiling spa and found symbols like this. And the reason being because this was the symbol that was being used to signify the underground church, and that was a spot to meet. So let me ask you this question then. Why would this symbol be found close to the front door of a Jewish synagogue?
Because they were allowing them to worship there also.
That's the opposite of the answer. Yeah, so the opposite is true. They were actually not allowing them to worship, right? So what was that? Unless you're talking about the Romans. Were you talking about the Romans? Are you talking about the Jewish people? So what was happening here is that we have one of the cities, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, whereas the Roman government was really persecuting the Christians, but they were okay with the Jewish people. Until, no, I take that back. They were not okay with the Jewish people until the Jewish people said, well, what if we kind of start getting in with the Romans? And they start getting in with the Romans. Well, how can we get in with the Romans even better? Well, how about we start giving up the Christians? If we know where any Christians are at, we'll tell them and we'll let them know. Which means that now the Jewish people were allowed to have their synagogue, but the Christians weren't. So now imagine that you were somebody that was raised in a Jewish community, and even though you're a couple generations away from Jesus being alive and being dead, probably multiple generations away from that, still you are within a community of faith. And within this community of faith, you know that your family and your tribe and your people would go to the Jewish synagogue every time they would meet. However, you know there was a little underground group of Christians that was also there. So now imagine this. You're going to a Jewish synagogue because your bloodline is Jewish, but you're hanging out outside this symbol because you know there's going to be a group of underground Christians that's also meeting at that Jewish synagogue. So it's almost like you go to the synagogue and then you have your secret Sunday school. That's kind of the way it was working, right? So you'd have this little spot where you would meet in there, and it was really the way that they would figure out a spot that everybody could get together because they were always there at that Jewish synagogue to meet. So this is one of the really cool things that we found there, is that we have this secret church that was meeting within the Jewish synagogue. Well, now as you keep on going in Sardis, everything gets even cooler. And if you think this is beautiful, just wait till you see it in person when you go with me next June. When you go with me, it's going to be even more beautiful. And what's really cool about this is that there's an entire story that's being told just in this one picture right here. And the story starts back in the year 549 BC. I didn't put this in your notes, but if you'd like to write that down, I would suggest to put it in the top right-hand corner of your paper because it's a really important date, 549 BC. And in 549 BC, Cyrus was the one that was leading our area. Would you get a paper? Thanks. And Cyrus was there in charge, and Cyrus was trying to say, hey, you know what? Sardis hasn't been taken over yet. Sardis needs to be conquered. We need to conquer Sardis. But the problem was that Sardis knew what they were doing. Sardis was a place that had it all together. There was a place where there was two mountainsides, and so they were protected on both sides. And so the city was very, very well fortified. And so what they would do is they would have constant soldiers that was always standing watch. And so what Cyrus did was he wanted to conquer them, so he put his soldiers down at the bottom to constantly watch the people that were constantly watching. You with me? So we had the watchers of the watchers, right? And so what happened was that the watchers were there, and the guys that were guarding Sardis was there, doing their job, standing in their spot, doing what they normally do, until one day, one of the soldiers fell asleep. 549 BC, a soldier fell asleep. And when the soldier fell asleep, unfortunately for him, his head didn't go backwards. Unfortunately for him, it's a lot like Bill I see every Sunday morning in church. And his head goes forward when he falls asleep. And when his head goes forward when he falls asleep, this soldier's helmet fell off. And now the soldier's helmet falls off, and it goes down this mountainside somewhere in that picture. And now remember, there's watchers watching the watcher. And as the soldier's helmet fell off, the soldier had a decision to make. He couldn't go back to his boss without a helmet. He was going to get in trouble. So he was going to go and fetch his helmet. So he went to go fetch his helmet, which was the exact time that the watchers watching the watcher said, let me figure out where he's getting his helmet from. And when he went and got his helmet, he went back up a secret passageway that nobody had been able to find. And so in 549 BC, because that soldier fell asleep, Cyrus's people was able to follow him back through the secret passageway, find their way into Sardis. And 549 BC was when Sardis was conquered because one of the soldiers fell asleep. And you would think that Sardis would learn their lesson. And yet I have another date that I'd love for you to write down. I'd love for you to write down 218 BC. 218 BC, the person that was in charge, his name was Antiochus. Antiochus would be his name, and he was now trying to take over Sardis. And wouldn't you believe In 218 BC, almost the exact same thing happens. They found a little spot. This story actually goes that a guy was throwing a dead donkey over the side. And as he was throwing a dead donkey over the side, then he was able to figure out the vultures, and he saw the vultures weren't moving, so he thought that one might be a way to come up, figured out with the dead donkey and the vultures, and he went up into the city in the middle of the night. And when he went to the city in the middle of the night, you know what he found? Everybody was asleep. All the soldiers were asleep. All the people that were supposed to be keeping watch were asleep. And so in 218 BC, the city got conquered twice. This was the second time. You know how embarrassing it must be for the city of Sardis that 2 times they got conquered because one of their guards fell asleep. So then, here comes a guy named John, who has been put out in exile on the Isle of Patmos. And Jesus appears to him in a vision in a cave that you guys are going to see in June when you go back with me. And now he's there in this cave, and he gets this vision, and he says, write this letter to Sardis. And 2 times, as he writes the letter to the church of Sardis, he says this, wake up! Wake up! 2 times in the letter, he writes, wake up to the church of Sardis. And the church of Sardis is known as the church who has fallen asleep. And so I'd like to read that letter, or actually even better, I'd like for you guys to read that letter to me so that we can see in this spot. So let's start with the first 2 verses. This is the very first time that we hear Jesus say, wake up to the church of Sardis. And this is found in Revelation chapter 3, starting in verse 1. Somebody please read that for me.
To the angel of the church in Sardis write, he who has the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars says this, I know your deeds, that you have a name, that you are alive, but you are dead. Wake up and strengthen the things that remain, which were about to die, for I have not found your deeds complete in the sight of my God.
So I personally, thank you very much. So I personally don't believe that it's a coincidence that he wrote wake up when he wrote this letter. In October of last year, I would have believed. There's no difference. The church was asleep. They need to wake up. Now, after being there and knowing the story and knowing the embarrassment that is the city of Sardis, we know that I believe that when Jesus was writing this letter to them, that they would have known exactly what that means. Exactly what that means, because 2 times in this letter he was told to wake up. So let's fill in some of these blanks here in part one, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this. All right, so if you're a good blank filler inner, the very first one in part 1 says, Sardis was a strong and powerful city. It was known for wealth, it was known for strength, and it was known for being difficult to conquer. However, Sardis was conquered because its guards failed to stay awake. So your 3 blanks there are strong, conquer, and stay awake. And the 4th one says, this physical history helps us understand the spiritual message Jesus gives to the church. So let me just ask you tonight, since we can all just be friends and talk tonight, what do you think the spiritual implication is for us? If they were writing a letter to the Church of Generations Church, and we got a letter that said, wake up, what do you think the spiritual implications would be for us? What do you think that actual meaning would be of that? Go ahead, Terrence.
That somebody's trying to invade us, and we've fallen asleep on the job.
That's an excellent answer, Terrence. That's very good. That's very good. And I'll tell you what, a little bit later I'm going to ask another question. I need you to repeat the exact same answer again, okay? Because that's even good for right now, but it's even better in the second half of this letter. But yes, that's very good. That's very good. What else do you think? Well, let me phrase this question to you like this then. What does it mean to spiritually be asleep? Go ahead.
Not live for Christ and not spread the gospel.
Good, right? Because you're asleep isn't the same as dead, right? So that means you're a church, and the church, these are people of Jesus, right? So like they have a relationship with Jesus. We can infer this from the context, but they're asleep. So if somebody was asleep as a church, if somebody as a Christian would be asleep, how would you say it, Heather, again?
To live for God and spread the gospel.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, so those are the things that we need to actively be doing. You can't actively be doing those things if you're asleep. Good. Anybody else have any thoughts? Tom?
keep watch
I thought you were thinking there. Okay.
Thinking about how they're.
Okay, good. And what's that?
we need to keep
And we need to keep watch.
over, you know, like what we talked about last night. You know, we're there to support each other.
Yeah, good. Very good.
Lift each other up.
Very good. Very good. That's an excellent answer. And so I would say that one of the things, there's many things in the letters to the churches that we don't want to be said of us. Probably the one that would probably be the worst would be losing your first love, right? I would never want that to be said about us, but I'd probably put this one second on the list, right? That we don't want to be the church that falls asleep, right? We don't want to be the church that falls asleep. So let's fill in these blanks here in part 2, because that might help us a little bit as well. Part 2, it says that Jesus says, you have the reputation of being alive, but you are dead. You have the reputation of being alive, but you are dead. And Jesus commands them to wake up and strengthen what remains. Twice. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up. Just think of Bill on a Sunday morning. Wake up! Exactly. I was thinking about this. I was talking to a friend just a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me about this lady that he had been meeting with, and she was a bit of an elderly lady, and he was walking her through the gospel. And here's what she said. She said that she just doesn't believe that the gospel was for her. She doesn't believe that she felt worthy of the gospel. And so he spent weeks walking her through this idea. And the thing about this lady is that if she were here right now, sitting in that chair, you would be like, that is the sweetest little church lady you've ever seen, right? You know what I'm talking about? You know church lady? You know, we have a few church ladies here at our church, just the sweetest, nicest people. Oh yeah, good call. Not that church lady from Saturday Night Live. Not the Dana Carvey's church lady. Good call. No, but like a sweet little lady that you know is really kind and always out there for you, you know. The kind of lady that you know if there's like a bake sale, she's going to bake the brownies, right? She's going to do whatever she can to get the kids to camp, you know. That kind of sweet little lady. Well, she was that kind of lady. And for weeks, she had told him that she didn't feel like she was worthy of the gospel. Well, there was finally a breakthrough. And she had this epiphany moment where she felt as though, all right, yeah, like you've convinced me, the gospel is for me. And she prayed to receive Jesus in her heart. And he had this regular scheduled meeting with her, and she didn't come to the next meeting. And so called the family, tried to figure out where she was at. She had passed away. She had passed away within a week of accepting Jesus. And even though she looked the entire time as though she was somebody. If you were to put money, if you were to sit her right there and say, Bill, her, who's saved, right? Sorry, Bill, we're putting the money on her, right? Because she looked as though she was that lady. She looked the part, right? And I think that's what he's saying here. In fact, I really think my grandma was that way, right? My mom's mom over here, she was very similar. She read her Bible every morning, did she not? Yeah. She read her Bible every morning, and she was the only one I knew that would do that. I would spend a night at her house, I'd wake up, and she'd be sitting under a little lamp reading her Bible. And it wasn't until my brother and I received Jesus, and we walked over to her house one day, and we said, hey, Grandma, what do you know about Jesus? And like she started crying in that moment, 70-something years old. She started crying and said, I've been running from God my whole life, and I'm tired of running. And you know what? On the outside, if you asked me who was somebody that I knew in my life that knew God, she'd be the only one I would have said. The only one I would have said. And yet she didn't. And so what I'm saying here is I think this is what he's trying to say in this letter. Is that, man, looks can be very, very deceiving. We can look as though we got it all together. We can look as though we're playing the part. Man, deep down, if you don't got it all together, you're dead and you're asleep. And he says it's time to wake up. And so maybe it's two-part. Maybe it's two-pronged. Maybe the one is, hey, the people of the church, if you're acting as though you're saved and you're not, it's time to wake up. And maybe the other one is, hey, for the rest of us that are saved, maybe it's about time for us to wake up and start to shake some things up, right? And to make sure that everybody that we come in contact with knows Jesus. So let's go to the back of it. It says, yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I wonder too, I mean, a lot of the Christians I know, you know, they're smoking pot, they're sleeping around, and yet they're so active in their church. And it makes me think, you know, why bother?
Yeah.
I can't change, they can't change, and they're a part of the church.
Yeah.
what good is it?
Terrence, here's what I would say about that. You and I live very different lives, right? Because people don't let me see that side of them. You know?
Because you're a pastor.
People want to fool me, right? They want to fool me. And I'll tell you what, also, Terrence, I'm very easy to fool. I'm very easy to fool. I was a youth pastor for 20 years. I'm very easy to fool. And so I would say I don't deal with a lot of that. Right? I deal with the opposite side of that. I deal with the side of that they show up at church and they make it seem as though everything's right, right? That's when my world gets rocked, when I find out what their actual life is like. But here's what I'd say. I'd say that we all each have to walk our own relationship with Jesus, right? And we can't base our relationship with Jesus on the person next to us, right? Because when we get to the judgment day, that person's not standing next to us, right? It's us and God. And we can't make excuses, hey, that guy was doing that when he wasn't supposed to, and that guy was doing that when he wasn't supposed to, and God's going to deal with them, right? All we can do is deal with our relationship with God in the midst of all of it. And I'm sorry that you've been in a spot where people haven't been doing the right thing and haven't been awake when they're supposed to, because it really does make me a little bit upset that you would even say that, because that really means that our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ haven't been doing what they're supposed to do, right? And so we all need to take this opportunity to wake up. And man, people are watching us, right? People are watching us, and we know that our testimony makes a difference. Even if we think nobody's watching, people are watching, right? So thank you for sharing that, and thanks for being honest about that, Terrence, as well. Hey, let's fill in these blanks on the back. It says the church in Sardis looked alive on the outside but was dead on the inside. And so here's a really strong line I want you to write down. It says they had a strong reputation but a weak relationship. They had a strong reputation but a weak relationship. What I love about the letter that he wrote to the church of Sardis is that he didn't just go and tell them, hey, here's what's wrong, but he also gave them a solution. And the solution is found in verse 3, where it says, part 4, Jesus' warning and invitation. I should have put verse 3 right next to it. So if you'd like to, if it helps you out, that's intended for Revelation 3:3. If somebody would read that verse for me, please, that's what we're going to dig into in part 4. Just that one verse.
Remember then what you received and heard, keep it and repent. If you will not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know at what hour I will come against you.
Very good, thank you. And in fact, Terrence, that's kind of what you were mentioning earlier, right? About making sure that you're awake because the thief could come in. So as you hear that, right, as you hear now that language, you can also remember 218 BC, right? When the thieves came in because everybody was asleep. So I don't think this language is accidental, right? I think this city was known for the city that the thieves came in the middle of the night and stole their stuff, and so it was there, and they said, hey, stay awake so that the thieves don't come in and steal, right? Because you never know when it's going to come back. And so then he gives them some advice. And really the very first advice that Jesus gives in this letter is very similar to advice that he gave to the church of Ephesus, which is remember where you came from. Right? Remember where you came from. And here's what I do whenever I'm leading a marriage counseling session, and people come to me and say, hey, you know what, we've been married for a while, or maybe not even that long, but things just a little rocky right now, and we need to figure some things out. Well, the very first session is always the same. It's always, hey, if you can, like, bring in your wedding albums. If you can, bring some pictures, like show me your wedding dress. Like show me where you got married at. Let's talk through this. And what happens is you get the husband and the wife there, and you know they've gone through some rocky times, right? They got married and there was no kids and there was no mortgage and everything was pie in the sky and everything was going to be amazing and they were going to be billionaires by the time they were married for 2 years, right? They had these great ideals of what it was going to be like. But then life got in the way and they started to slowly spread apart from one another. Well, once you see these wedding albums, what we find is that people look at it and say, man, my dress was so beautiful that day. Oh man, I loved it. You know what? My sister-in-law, boy, she was such a jerk that day, wasn't she? You know what? That's what we usually say. But we talk about that day, and man, and then it gets down to this. Boy, I really, really loved you that day. Well, so you loved them then. And what's changed between then and now? What you need to do is you got to remember where you were when you first fell in love with them. And I think this is what God's calling us to do in this spot. If we're ever this spot where we fall asleep, where we're asleep at the wheel, where we're allowing the enemy to come in and infiltrate our camp because we're not keeping watch, you got to go back and remember, hey, where was it that your relationship with God was the strongest? And let's go back to those moments. Hey, let's talk about all the good things that God's done in your life. And let's talk about the blessings that you have in your life. Hey, why don't you remember what God has done? Because when you remember what God has done, you'll wake up. You'll wake up. And so I think this is the advice that he was giving them, right? And to fill in the advice in your 4 blanks there, it says to remember what they have received. Remember what they have received. And then number 2 says keep it. Don't lose it. Don't drop it like a helmet down a mountain, right? Keep it. And then what always happens in all of the advice that we ever get from Jesus, the 3rd thing is to repent. When you're in that marriage counseling session and they say, hey, that's when I first loved him. Well, what happened? Well, I did this and they did this. Hey, listen, the very first thing that you say after that, and I always talk to the men first because we're the ones that's responsible. Hey, start with I'm sorry. Right? Those are the 2 words that starts any sort of reconciliation conversation. I'm sorry. So if you're in that relationship with God and you say, hey, I'm far away from my relationship with God, I've fallen asleep, you start out with those same 2 words at every beginning of every reconciliation conversation. I'm sorry. And that's the repent part. And then he says, and now number 4, remember to always keep watch. Keep watch. Now don't fall asleep, keep watch. So those are the 4 things that he says in just verse 3. Remember what they've received, keep it, repent, and keep watch. And then it says, if they do not, Jesus says he will come like a thief. Jesus says he will come like a thief. This means he will be sudden and unexpected. So let me tell you what we believe this means. This means that, well, he's going to take away what we would call their lampstand. Right? Hey, if you're not going to represent me well as a church, well, you're just not going to do it anymore. Right? My name is not going to be mocked. If you're not going to do it right as the church, then you're not going to do it anymore. Right? Now what I love about the fact that we got to go to Turkey and see all this stuff is that when you see things like this, when you see things like people risking their lives in order to be Christians, knowing they could die if they were found out, what I love about that is that you can look at this letter and know that it was written before this and know that they listened. Like they followed directions. We know they followed directions because they kept on going. They kept on sharing the gospel and growing in their relationship with Christ, even when their lives were on the line. That's what I love about this stuff, because you look at it, and most of the time, all of these churches get a bad rap. And they say, hey, it's the church that fell asleep. They were terrible as a church. They fell asleep, and they didn't keep watching. No. It was a warning. Hey, don't let this happen anymore. Fix it. Fix what's going on. And because this warning came, I really believe they all did that. Now, also, this week and last week, we moved on in our study, in my honors Bible study, my honors Bible class. And as I taught them on the 7 churches of Revelation, in order to make sure that I had good material for you guys, and here, double dipping. But as I did that, now I was going on into the book of Revelation. And this week, man, we're walking through a premillennial, pre-trib timeline of what it looks like when Jesus comes back in the end times. What Revelation 20, what Daniel chapter 6, what the prophecies of Ezekiel. If you put all those together, what do I think it looks like? Right? What do I think it looks like? Very, very clear words. If you're watching online, those are my very clear words. What do I think it looks like? My own personal opinion, not fact, right? And my own personal opinion is that there will be a rapture one day. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, it says that one day we're going to be walking up a hill, one is there, one's gone, right? In the middle of the night, we're going to be gone. And so what I told my students all week and all last week is that one day there's going to be a rapture, and just in any second, we're going to be gone. And I keep hoping it's going to happen when I say that, right? I just know it's going to happen one day. And then I'm going to get to heaven. I'm going to be like, first try. That was my goal. So I told all my students, I said, every good Christian parent should tell their kid before they leave the house to wear clean underwear, because you never know if the rapture is going to happen, right? Because, I mean, think about it. Think about it. Now, if you watch the Left Behind movies with Kirk Cameron, you might notice that there was never any underwear left on that. So either there was a weird commando thing going on, or they were just trying to be G-rated in the movie. But people will see the underwear once you get raptured, okay? So just remember that. And if you're wearing, like, I don't know, Looney Tunes underwear or something, Tom, just make sure that if that's what you want to be known for after you get raptured, then that's what's going to happen. But the idea is that at any moment, that rapture could happen, and we could be gone. So the idea is that if that's the case, if at any moment the rapture can come and we could be gone, then that means we need to live our lives as though it's the last second. We need to live our lives as though we're at the end. Because we don't know if we're at the end. We really don't. And even if you don't believe in the rapture, even if you think 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 is symbolic and not literal, I believe it's literal, but even if you don't, hey, just because the rapture doesn't happen doesn't mean that you're not going to drive out into this road, and God forbid, it's going to be the last time you drive a car. We never know. We never know. And so what he says is keep watch. Because just like that, everything could change, right? So that's my little side preaching. This is because John's not here tonight, all right? So I got to give you some preaching and some stuff, okay? He is here, but God bless him. He's...
With our wonderful folks.
With our wonderful, I'm sure Ethan is just doing great with him over there. I warned him about Ethan already. Mikey warned him about Chance, so we'll see. That's the thing, like John can't pull his hair out, so, that's the only thing we can't do, just saying. All right, guys, we're going to come to the end here, and I'm going to show you what I think to be the coolest part of, probably one of the coolest parts of the entire trip altogether. Because what I told you on this picture right here is I told you about the mountains in the back, and I've left it up here the whole time to see if anybody was going to watch the picture instead of paying attention to me, which would have been okay. But you guys probably noticed that in the middle of this picture is 2 giant columns, right? You probably see that right there in the middle. So let's see if my clicker still works. I knew it was going to stop working once I stopped using it. See, the laser pointer works, but this part doesn't work. Heather, would you mind going in the thing? It just randomly stops working, and I don't know why. Here, let me turn it off and back on again and see if that works.
Roll the battery.
Hang on a minute. Wait. Maybe I got it. No, I didn't get it. All right, would you go to the next slide, please? There we go. So in this next slide right here, you'll see a different angle of what I was showing you there. So what you have here is and you can see somebody down there in the bushes, so you can kind of get an idea for how big it is. And what you have there is what is the beginnings of a temple that was being built to the false god of Artemis. And so we talked about Artemis in here a little bit before, but Artemis was a really big fancy god there in modern day Turkey. And so they decided to start building this temple to Artemis. And so as you can see, like that column, that structure is huge. And those 2 columns are there. And then you might also, and those 2 columns, by the way, have withstood all the earthquakes all the time. That's not rebuilt. Those two columns have withstood all the earthquakes that have come, and so it's very well made. And by the way, just as a side note, it's all made with lead. So they put lead in there to keep it all together, and then they could not figure out why their life expectancy was so low. But they're literally just playing with lead for their entire lives. And so this would take like generations and generations and generations to build, right? And so this was a few generations to build this part of the Temple of Artemis. And the idea was that all these columns were supposed to be finished, and this beautiful big temple was supposed to be built. Can you go to the next slide, Heather? There's me by it. Look at that. What a guy. That's what you saw online today. Yes, you could see my beautiful, hey, Bill, that's not cool. You could see my beautiful pose and my bad posture at the same time. All right, so let's go to the next slide right here. And this is the cool slide right here. So what happens here in this is you can see that the Temple of Artemis was being built, but then they stopped. And you'd say, well, I wonder why they stopped. Why didn't they finish building the Temple of Artemis? If they went through that much trouble, why did they not finish? Well, what happened was, as they were building this temple, we're in the hundreds, right? We start with 0, right, as when the calendar shifts. And then, John wrote this in 90, so we're pretty close to 100. And then remember, we said right around 300 is when Constantine allowed Christianity to become legalized, and so we can build our own churches right around 300. And so in the midst of all that was when they were about to build this temple. Well, they start to build this temple to Artemis, and what happened was the Christians were doing such a good job that they didn't need the temple anymore. And so they started building the temple halfway, and they didn't finish building the temple. And so now Constantine comes along and says, well, guess what, guys? You can build your own church now. And that right there is what you see in this picture. One of, if not the, very first Christian church that was built after Constantine legalized it. And you might notice the proximity of the church to the Temple of Artemis. It was 100% intentional. They did it on purpose, and if I could just, I don't know a nice way to say this. Can I just be mean for a minute? It was an up yours to them, right? that was essentially what was happening. Hey, you're building this temple, this huge temple to this false god. I'll tell you what, we're going to take our church and we're going to put it as close to that temple. We're going to worship the real God in this church. The problem was they put it so close couldn't put a front door on it. So that's why you see, I think the next slide shows the side door that's there. Yes, this is the side door, and this is the side of the entrance that's there. And so in one of the very first churches that was ever constructed after Constantine legalized it. And so hopefully there's sound on the next one. Let's go to the next slide. We decided we should, oh, that's me again. Hi. We decided that if we got 12 pastors in there, that we should probably sing a song while we're in there. So let's see if this works.
Of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above all names. Jesus, the name above every other name. He's the only one who could ever save. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And
You get the next slide. So what I thought we would do is, since we were there in the middle of one of the very first, if not the very first church that was built after Constantine legalized Christianity and allowed us to build this church, there's 12 pastors there from all different parts of the country, and we all decided maybe this is a really good time. We read some scripture, we sang a song, we had my buddy Zelvis with me, and he's a great singer, so he was singing and leading us as we were there. And you know, I only filmed a little bit of the song because I wanted to sing, and I didn't want you guys to hear me sing. And so I only filmed a little bit of the song. But what you don't know is that after that song was over, that we drew a crowd. You can imagine 12 pastors in the middle of one of the first churches, if not the very first church to ever be built, and we start singing, and Zelvis actually sounds good. People start to gather around. Well, and I can just be honest and be blunt for just a minute. It probably didn't hurt that he was an African American, because he was my roommate the entire time, and we walked around the entire time together. And people were just shouting at him, "Hey, black man, come eat lunch with us," because it was there was not a lot of black people that were there. And so there was a double thing happening there. People were coming around to video him. People were coming around to video us. And so by the end of it, we had people all the way in the back of him, in the front of us. People were gathered all around filming as the 12 of us were singing in the very first church, if not the very first church that was ever built after Constantine legalized Christianity. And as we got back to our tour guide and we thought everything was wonderful and hunky-dory and what a special moment it was, he let us know that we will never do that again. Because what we just did and what I just showed you is against the law. Think about this. Think about this. That's the very first, if not the very first Christian churches to ever be legalized under Constantine, and we are not allowed to sing a song to Jesus and read the Bible in that church. Why? Because the president of Turkey is a Muslim. And I tell you what a full circle moment when you think about it. You have people right here that have said, hey, my generations before me, they risked their lives to carry on the name of Jesus. And now I can't even imagine how beautiful it must have been on that day when they had the very first church service in that building. To know that it was no longer, they don't have to stay. They can put up flyers. They can tell people to come to church. They can say, hey, come and listen to the name of Jesus. And it happened right there in that building. Right there next to the fake temple Artemis that they never finished building. And now they can come in and say, hey, let me tell you about the way, the truth, and the life. They were allowed to come in there and tell anybody that wanted in the city of Sardis to come in and hear about Jesus. And now, all these years later, we're not allowed to do it anymore. Right? So, When I think about that, I think about this full circle moment. About how, yeah, this church woke up. I think they did exactly what they were told to do. They were told to wake up. And I think they listened. I think you can see that generations from now they listened. And now, in this moment, now we are in this moment where we can't. That we can't in that same moment. Yes, did you have a question?
Yes, so legally, how come they don't take it down then? If they're not, like, what's protecting that church from standing there?
Here's what I would say about that. I really don't think I would have got arrested. I really don't think Zelbus would have got arrested. I think our tour guide would have got arrested. Right? I think he is the one that is really at jeopardy of losing everything that he has, because he's the one that's bringing us there. And so I think there's this little under the table conversation. Hey, you can bring the Christians in here, but let's not spread that Christian stuff here. Right? As we keep on asking the tour guide, hey, can you show us where the churches are? And we were trying to look for Christian churches in the city. And they would say, well, there's one here, there's one there, one there. No, that was a laundromat. Like they were lying to us. It wasn't like they put it on Google and you look there and it was a laundromat and it was a restaurant. It wasn't real. So it's all fake. They're trying to make us believe as though it's still a Christian area. That way the Christian tourists would still come there and still patron their restaurants and still go to their hotels. But at the end of the day, like if you're a Muslim, if you're an imam leading one of the Muslim churches, you actually work for the Turkish government. And the Turkish government are building the mosque, and they're the ones that's bringing the Muslim faith to the top. Even though they're saying publicly that they're a city and a state and a country of tolerance, they're actually not, right? It's just a facade of tolerance. A facade of tolerance, and then on the underground layer of it, it's really, hey, we really want to be a Muslim country, but we also want to be, what they really want is they really want their feet in two worlds. Right? Because even if you look at the women that are there that are Muslim, they're not dressed like you would think in normal, strict Muslim countries. So they're kind of wanting to have their feet in both worlds. But, I mean, we've read enough history books to know that doesn't last very long. Right? Like there's going to be a reckoning, there's going to be a holy war. There's either going to be another Muslim country that comes in and says, hey, how come you're not dressing the way that we dress over in our country? And there's going to be some issues. Or it's going to go the opposite way.
When I was there 20 years ago,
Yes, sir.
in the military, it was a lot more free,
Yeah.
a lot more pro-Christian.
Yeah.
But I was also going to point out, like where you were talking about building the church next to the temple as kind of a
Yeah.
middle finger.
Yeah. I need to find a better way to say that, so I'm sorry. Yes.
Even in this country, that's always kind of gone on up through the Middle Ages. Christianity doesn't do that much generally.
Yeah.
But like Islam actively seeks out like defunct churches,
Right.
old churches,
Sure.
buys them up, turns them into mosques.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get that, yeah. And as I was I spent some time last year and I guess 2 years ago now in London, and the same things happen in London. Like we actually have guards standing outside our Christian churches in London because some of the Muslims are just coming in and disrupting services in the midst of all of it. Or Muslims or people within carrying the name of Islam and not doing it properly or doing it the way they think they should. Either way, they're wearing the moniker of Muslim and interrupting church services that's there, and they're afraid it's going to go to the next level. So they actually have hired security to stand outside of, like, almost 24/7 outside of churches to make sure that the Christian churches are allowed to operate today. Yes, sir.
You know what, I was thinking that the government really has changed a lot in, 60 years,
Yeah.
because a friend of mine from high school went there on a, foreign exchange program to Turkey.
Yeah.
And the foreign exchange program had something to do with our government and their government. So it must have been all right at the time,
Yeah.
because they know that we are a Christian country,
Yeah.
so they would have been all right at that time.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. Honestly, it doesn't take long. It's a very slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope because here's the thing is if we as Christians aren't staying awake, then that's exactly what happens, right? The thief comes in and infiltrates the camp. And I think that's really what happened in the entire country of Turkey and specifically here in the city of Sardis. So let me do what I would do with my students here. And let's say, all right, so you got a lot of information today and you got a lot of stuff to fill your brain, but what's the application? You guys fill this in for me. What's the application today? What can we learn? What's the takeaway?
One of the only
Yeah.
One of the things really convicting to me when you go back to the picture of the wheel,
Yes.
is that for me personally, how often, I mean, like generally at work, everybody knows that I'm a Christian and stuff, but it's not a Christian environment.
Yeah.
Not predominantly anyway.
Yeah.
But how hard or how often I'll say, no, I don't want to share, or I don't want to call that behavior out, or whatever, because of how somebody will think about me.
Right.
Or I might get belittled a little
Yep.
bit, or given a hard time. And those people were doing it knowing that if they shared with the wrong person or under the wrong circumstance,
Yeah.
they would be dead.
Dead. In horrific ways.
And not
too.
even die, oh, somebody,
Yeah.
not even just, oh,
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. That's a great takeaway. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
You know what really stands out for me is the story of that soldier, those soldiers
Yeah.
who fell asleep.
Yeah.
You know, we sometimes don't realize that our lives have ripple.
Yeah. It's good.
It's not just about us.
Yep.
And when we drop the ball, other people are impacted.
Yeah. It's good. It's very good. Very good. I guess I should be repeating this for people, if anybody's watching online. What she said right here is that our life has ripples. And really there's consequences to all the things that we say. And my friend over here says that when he's at work and he doesn't share, even though he has opportunities to share, and we think about people who literally risked their lives for generations in order to do that before it was legalized. And now we're at full circle moment, right? Now they've fallen asleep again, and now, we're next. Right, we're next. You can look at our country and know that we're next. Yeah, so you say that it didn't take long there. Maybe it won't take long here either, right? It's a very slippery slope. And so it just takes a couple things to happen, and we fall asleep. And then next thing you know, listen, I don't even like the phrase Christian nation, right? Because we're not a Christian nation, but we are, at least are a nation that allows Christians to be here, right?
The Muslims figure that by 2060, they will have the majority.
Yeah, I believe that. I would believe that for sure. Anybody else? Any other takeaways that we can have?
Yeah, it's really like
Yes, sir.
Islam's more like a political party form of government.
Yeah.
It's disguised as a religion
Yeah.
in order to control the people.
Yeah.
It's all
Keep them
Yeah. That's true. But all right. But let me push back on that for a second. Because there's a whole lot of people treating Christianity the same way too, though. Couldn't we agree? There's a whole lot of people that would say, let's use Christianity as a political platform as well. So we do have to be careful that we don't do it as well, right? We have to make sure that we're not in the same boat as them, right? Because there's still the idea that lost people are going to be lost, right? Sinners are going to sin, right? Like that's just like it's literally in the title, right? So we can't legislate people becoming Christians, right? Because if we legislate people becoming Christians, it's not real, right? It's not real at all. So we still just have to be in that spot. But yeah, you're right. And so it seems as though there's some other places that aren't doing the same things, right? Yeah, that's good. Any other one or two more? Anything else? Other takeaways? Sorry, John. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I thought it interesting to use the point of our God, the real one, against a false God.
Mm-hmm.
The other part is Artemis was the god of war. And
Yes.
Jesus is definitely at peace.
God of
We have
peace
to
in
remember
that.
that
Yeah,
at times. And
that's
I
great.
think that's a reminder to them every day they were going into that
Yeah, it's great.
church, is that we're commanded to love each other.
Fantastic.
And not fall to the praise of what the world wants us to do, just come out and battle everybody at the same level.
Yeah, fantastic. That was really good. If you're online, you should have just been here. All right, good. Yeah, that's really, I can't even repeat that. That was really good. I can't repeat that. Anybody else? Nobody really wants to follow that though, do they? Okay, that's good. Hey, let's fill in these blanks here real fast for all the OCD people in the room. And if you want to do homework, part 6 was homework. So if you want to do homework, feel free to do it. But really, it's kind of the questions I'm asking you right now. So let's do part 5. Even in Sardis, some people were still faithful. All right, that's what we see. People were still faithful. That's how we got that church to be built hundreds of years later. People were still faithful. Oh yeah, we didn't finish reading. Let me go ahead and finish reading the letter. Sorry. That was verse 3. Verse 4, it says, so I'll go back to verse 3 again. It says, remember then when you received what you received and heard, keep it and repent. If you will not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know what hour I will come against you. Yet you still have a few names in Sardis. People have not soiled their garments. They haven't pooped their pants. And they walk with me while in white, for they are worthy. The one who conquers will be clothed thus in white garments, and I will never blot his name out of the book of life, and I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. And so what he says here in the blanks is Jesus promises they will walk with him in white. Their names will not be erased from the book of life, and he will confess their names before the Father. White, life, Father is those last three blanks. That's our time together today. I appreciate you guys coming out. This was my favorite lesson that I think we learned while in Sardis, while in Turkey, really. My second favorite lesson you're going to learn in 2 weeks. Next week, of course, we hate Philly, don't we, John? It's just the worst, right?
We are Flyers fans.
You can't put the word "we" in front of that, sir. Feel free to put the word "I" in front of that, but don't put the word "we" in front of that, sir. Yeah.
I think you're really alone in that area.
I'll pray for you.
So next week we'll talk about Philadelphia. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Philly jokes that I'll bring to the table. But we do have some things to pray over and pray for. Katerina and Kevin where were they sitting last week? Here? Right here? Back over here? Back over there, that's right. Kevin and Katerina were sitting over there last week. And now the baby has been born. Oh, sweet baby Valentina is here. Yes, and so beautiful. She has a lot more hair than me, not even close. So I was already pretty jealous of her. I don't need a comment from you, Elias, okay? But we do have some other, let's go and stop the videos so we can, bye everybody. If you're watching online, come next week so we can make fun of Philadelphia together. Except for Terrence. All right, Terrence is going to be pro-Philly. Everybody else.
Philly shirt next week?
Probably will. He's saying yes, he's ready. All right, so let's go over some prayer requests real fast.